These are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends.
What's up? It's your boys. Welcome back to the Professional Hippies podcast. Hey, today, got some things we need to talk to you about. Not you, Dylan, but I guess you. Yeah.
But
Hey, if you're new to our show, we're the host with the most. I'm Colton. This is Dylan. Idea behind the Professional Hippies, whatever professional means to you. Maybe throw on a tie if you're going to listen to this. Be professional. Hippie woo woo. You know them, especially if you're in Austin. You see them everywhere. You might have publicly seen them defecate in the street. I've seen it at least 3 times now. I'm not even kidding. That's a real stat. So, how you been, buddy?
Oh, it's been one hell of a roller coaster. I tell you what, the past few weeks. Like, you know how they always talk about there's going to be points in life where things are going great. You got to enjoy those moments, right? And then there's going to be those really hard dips sometimes, and that's where you learn a lot of things, right, that come along. And the past couple of weeks has just been like a real sinker of a lot of learning and a lot of lows, but not low where they were like controllable, just like things out of my control that I've just had to like handle as they've come, you know, family issues, home issues, whatever it is, you know, dealing with life. It's been one of those definitely like moments in life where you're like, you definitely got to enjoy the highs, but like sometimes there's just things where you just got to, you know, keep trucking along moments.
How do you feel like you handled it? You feel like
I'm still handling it. That's the thing. Still handling it. The family one, I feel like I handled it well. That was a life learner. It was my grandmother passed away, and being there for her and being with the family during all that time, and kind of really got to see the full cycle of seeing the end. And it was kind of more of like a life learning situation. You know, when you're younger, you see things and you go to the funeral and you're like, yeah, something, you know, that's part of life. People pass away. But when you kind of see it actually happening, you know, that's a whole different thing, you know, of like, oh, we're all going to kind of go through something like this, you know, she had her whole family there, which even brought it to the point of like, man, it makes it so important that you want to have people there with you at the end that really care about you and that really want to make sure you're comfortable, make sure you have the best and surrounded by family. Because, yeah, you just start thinking of like, what about those that don't have that? You know, and you start thinking about that and you're like, oh, that's why it's always good to, you know, treat people, because you never know, you know, when that time's going to come. You always want to treat people. She was just to talk about her real fast. She was like the perfect grandmother she was all about family. She was all about, you know, always walked in, gave you a hug, biggest smile. She loved to be spoiled by my grandfather. You know, she loved to do her shopping, but if she wanted to get something for her grandkids that she knew would make them happy, that was something she was going to make happen too, you know? So her life's goal was to grow and build a family that she surrounded herself with. And she did that. And she set a great example. And so going through that and then going through, you know, setting up the funeral arrangements, learning that experience, man, I tell you what, I threw out every dark joke imaginable with the funeral attendant. I don't know why, but it was all coming out. And it was funny watching his sales process, because I went into it knowing like, okay, this is a sales process, right? This guy has to do that. So I'm like, I am looking forward to actually kind of seeing that. And so watching him kind of feel it out, like, okay, how are they going to handle this morning, right? And it was my grandfather and I, and both him and I are both like joke throwers. And so once he realized we were like dark humor type people, he was like, all right, I'll get with you guys. I'll throw some dark humor out with you. I got some good ones. I don't know. I was just, it was like there was one where I guess, I don't know why I talk about this, but one of the things that you could build a crypt where the family stacked up on top of each other there. And I was like, oh, that's an incentive to stay in shape all your life, you know? And he was like, God damn, dude.
They rearranged the pyramid, right?
You're like, are you like, yeah, do you get rearranged based off your size as you go along? And then there was like,
you just need someone to have like a late term miscarriage for the pinnacle of the pyramid, though, because it's got to trend in a skinny direction.
Is there like a lever in there where you pull that person to the top and slide them in and go to the bottom? And then there was like a crypt there that said Tucci. And I was like, oh, it's Gucci's cousin, Tucci.
How did you find the sales process, though? I mean, like, was he, navigated well, or?
I'm glad we had the person that we had because he'd been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And my grandfather called him. He's like, I don't want to work with a used car salesman here. That's the worst thing to call like a salesperson.
Oh, for sure.
And the guy, like, I'm not a used car salesman, but he kept throwing that jab at grandfather the rest of the time. He's like, you started it. I'm just letting you know that. But it was good. It was very professional. You could see him just moving things along throughout the process, just knowing what to ask, what to deal. It was good. I'm glad we had who we had because my grandfather is an engineer. It was very like contract. I want to look at things, stuff like that, and he was able to answer all the questions. If we would have had a new person, we would have been there forever calling managers and shit. So it was awesome. The only time he tried to upsell was when he took us to like the nicer part of the place. He was like, if you want, like, there's this thing, and it was just nice to see it. There was a piece of property there though that was worth $2.5 million. It was the most expensive land that you buy for family burial. And I asked him that. I was like, hey man, like, what does that sales process entail? What's going into that? And he goes, oh, that's, if someone's wanting that piece of land, they've been searching for it for the like multi-generational family burial. And that's not like really a sales process. That's like, hey, we're coming to look, and if it's not what we want, we're going to continue on. But if it's what we want, we'll buy it type of situation. Right. So that was pretty, it had like a moat around it. It was like a little piece of land with a moat around it. And you just put a bunch of land, 2.5 million just for the land to bury your family on. I was like, that's nuts. But cool part is Bob Ross is buried there in that place. I was like, all right, cool. She gets to look at paintings all
was that life. On the billboard when you went in, by the way? Like the also known for as seen on TV.
Well, I asked him about the Pokemon thing because remember the Pokemon Go, they were everywhere. Well, cemeteries were well known for it because they had all the sculptures. And in the game, like sculptures and stuff can pick up as Pokemon stops or whatever. And so it was a big problem. He goes, no, but we got people come looking for Bob Ross all the time. So you got to be careful of those guys, but it's all right.
Yeah. We went through the sales process when my dad passed, and dude, I was so unimpressed with the chick that ran stuff. The guy that we had was all right. It was just odd because I was kind of the point man for our family because one brother's in jail, the other brother, I guess, just whatever, family trusted me. So we're sitting there, and the guy keeps directing all the questions to my older brother, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm literally paying for this." And he was like, "Yes, sir." And just keeps going back. I'm like, all right, fuck it, whatever, I'll just kind of hang back until we really have to make decisions. And then we're hanging out in the lobby, and my brother and I are handling it all right. We're going from crying to laughing. And the lady comes out, I guess like the director. I don't know. I just remember how much gold she had on her fingers. Like one of those like Karen bobs too, And
was this in the Panhandle?
In the Panhandle.
In the Panhandle? Yeah.
I had a Rolex on, had multiple like gaudy gold rings, and was just like trying to console us for all of 3 seconds before she's like, so where's your father being buried? And I was like, he's not, we're doing a cremation. She was like, oh, where are you laying his ashes? I was like, I don't know, next to like a natty pack or something, like on the beach in a fucking toilet. I don't know. Hadn't made it that far. Like, dude's right over there trying to just say my piece. And she's like, well, don't you think it'd be nice for the family to have like a plot to come visit after he's gone? My brother starts like shaking his head. He's like, yeah, that would be nice. And I was like, no, No.
That's why they were talking to your brother. They could see it.
Yeah. He's like, well, how much would that be? I was like, I got the answer right here. Don't give a fuck. Actually. Like,
how much would that be? Hey, where's your credit card? That's how much that is.
I mean, when dude passed, I was like, all right, we got to figure this out because it was pretty sudden for us. And so I could start calling around. I was like, $3,000 to light my father on fire. And they're like, sir, what? I'm like, I'm just making sure I'm hearing you correctly. I'm a sobbing mess and you're charging me $3,000 to burn this body. They're like, to cremate him. Yes, sir.
No. It's $3,000 to get rid of this problem. I just want to clarify.
I'm like, I made so many problems for my father. It is very befitting that getting rid of his body is not my problem. I get it. It's on me for sure. And my uncles called me and, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, of course, we're paying for everything. Like, this is not your problem. I was like, all right, yeah, I get that. But still at that point, I thought I was paying for everything. So at some point, my brother brought up that my dad somebody owed him a favor or whatever. So I call that funeral home and they're like, how can we help you? I'm like, hey, my dad just died. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, is this guy the owner of the place? They were like, yeah, actually. How do you know that? I'm like, I think he owes my dad a favor. They're like, okay. So I talked to the owner of the funeral home and he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, we'll do what it costs. And it was like $800.
You're like, what favor was that?
Oh no, my dad would fix shit all the time for people.
Oh, he had a
tractors
list.
And
Got it.
I mean,
my dad did that too. Okay,
most of Panama City owed my dad a favor because he would just be like, just buy me a drink, and it's like, dude, you're an alcoholic. Like, that doesn't count. Like, what do you?
They give it to you for free. You got a punch stamp there.
Love you, Dad. Mean it. You know it. But yeah, that process is just like, I can't think of probably another place that would have more emotion in a sales process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely like if you don't plan it in advance, they got you by the balls for sure. Like type of place. Like they and I feel like though, if we would have been, it didn't seem like you did a lot of upselling. I know that. Like we were already, it wasn't, though the conversation was already going in. We're not spending up here. We're not down here either. Like upper middle, like once he heard that, I think he already knew he was probably getting a nice commission check off of it. But
what do you think their commission is?
I don't know. It's gotta be pretty, limited space. You're dealing with what you got. So you got to constantly upsell the situation, so based off of this, you're going to be upselling. I wonder if you get more on the upsells than you do the actual plot because they're already going to get it anyways. It was interesting to say the least, like going through that and then looking at the company too. The company that owns that land is a publicly traded company. I didn't even realize that. So I guess there's just one big industry that takes care of it all, SCI or something like that. Yeah.
That'd be an odd job to have.
An odd job, but I feel like once you get good at it, it's probably like a good repeating business.
You think?
But yeah, you're just like, you got to be really good at fucking reading people though. Like reading the room on those types of situations. But there were some misses on this, right? Like I tested them on a couple things. I'll tell you that. There was a couple of things I threw out there just to see how good of a salesman this guy was. One of them, we were going through the process and I go, hey, I'll throw his name out there. His name's Leon. I won't say where, but his name's Leon. And I went, hey, Leon, will you be with us throughout the entire process? Right? Like making sure everything's taken care of. I never saw him again after that day. He was around and he made sure everything was set up and he made sure people were there. But he said he would be making sure he made everything unless it was a Sunday. He goes to church. Fine. Didn't see him again. So I was like, strike one. There was another scenario where something popped up and I was like, that's strike two on my part. So I'm like, I got to deal with you again, man. We paid for 2 plots here, not one. So I'm the guy that you'll be talking to again.
That is the weird thing about like getting older though, is taking on responsibilities that I guess some of them you see coming where you're like, hey, I'm ready to buy a house. If you're planning for a kid, you're like, we're planning for this. Death is just one of those where it comes when it comes.
It comes when it comes, and it was interesting going through all that, because you're like, it was such a point in my life where, you know, most people aren't handling this when they're younger. They usually have family members that are taking care of these situations, and I think I was there to help my family because they already were going through a lot taking care of her. So I kind of came in at the end and wanted to help out as much as I can. And I'm glad I did. But man, it just seeing like them letting me do it was just like, oh, this is what that is. Of like, this is a very much when people are thinking about passing the torch. And then when you're talking, you know, I was thinking about like when I'm talking with my kids in the future, and those moments when you're like, you know, you'll find out one day. It's hard to explain type of situation. This was one of those moments I truly never understood that comment until like this all happened. I was like, I can't really show you, you can't really talk to it, but you'll see it one day.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there it is. That's what this looks like. And it was interesting too, just going through the process of thinking about the afterlife and what goes on. You know, we had the priests come and do their thing, but for me, it was kind of interesting, just like what I've done, honestly, through psychedelics and a lot of other things, of just kind of seeing the other side of things and trying to understand it. It really kind of helped me through a lot of this process of like, I know she's going to a better place. There is a whole better world on the other side from here, you know?
Yeah.
And she's not going to be suffering anymore from what she was. So it helped me through that, and it's helped me through a lot of other situations understand that. But yeah, that was hard. And then haven't dealt with my house at all during that whole time. So the past like 2 weeks, my house has just been like have floodwater bullshit sitting in the house. It's like, I'll make it back there at some point and handle all that.
Now's about the time where that starts to become an issue.
Yeah, now I'm starting to like, I've been cleaning up, I've been mopping up everything. I'm gonna have to start cutting down some drywall here pretty soon for the side part of the house, but I'm just cleaning up everything, wiping down everything. You pick up something, you're like, oh, that touch water, throw that out. But man, I tell you what, the hardest loss that I saw, and this is nobody's fault at all about it because it's just the floods, but man, I left my Bobby Bowden signed picture on the ground. It was just in a box, and that box got wet, and then I got up into the picture and ruined the signed Bobby Bowden thing. I was like, dang it. You know, I really like that thing.
Yeah. When stuff like that happens, man, you're just like,
yeah, there's nothing
you can do.
Nothing you can do.
Feel the rage as much as you can for like 5 minutes, like really let it in.
And then you're like,
let it go.
It was a thing, an object. Who cares? You know, but I got this bad boy and it's still there, and I got this bad boy, it's still there, and I got my other paintings, they're all still good.
So well, funny enough, on that same topic, I signed up for therapy the other day.
I'm thinking about signing up for that too, just for mental awareness.
Something, right? Like I was literally sitting on the couch the other day, and I felt like a foreign substance started drip down on my cheek, and I was like, I'm crying. I just kind of like looked, no one's around. And I was like, this is a symptom of something I need to address. I just started asking myself some questions. I was like, hey, what's going on right now? And I just
body pushing this out. Hey, man.
Dude.
Not just scare you. Just go to push that one out.
Just pushing it out, you know? So, that was one thing kind of going back to Burning Man. When we were in the temple where everyone offers their letters and memorabilia and whatnot, says goodbyes. I was cool until I wasn't. I thought about my dad, and I think that was the first time since he died that I was able to cry about it. I could be wrong, but for sure in memory of like feeling the emotions of him passing and not trying to joke about it, right? Not trying to deflect the emotion, just really allowing myself to feel. And I was sobbing in that temple. And I thought about it and I was like, I don't cry. Like that's a thing. I had that awareness about a year ago when I was at my sister's house. I was in the shower and I thought about my dad because I was back in Panama City and there was something came up that made me think of him. And I was so sad and I wanted to cry. And then I got mad because I wasn't crying and I wanted to feel sad, but then the sad transmuted into anger. And I tried to feel the anger and it was this fucking carousel of emotions that didn't know how to come out. And when I was sitting on the couch the other day, I was like, I think I've gotten really good at compartmentalization, but I've noticed other symptoms crop up in life when the compartmentalization thing isn't working out and it turns into distraction or lack of presence, fiddling, nail biting, just all these other things you don't think about consciously until you're looking for them. And then I was like, hey, you know what? Had a buddy that suggested BetterHelp, that app.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed up for it. I get, 2 free calls, whatever. I've signed up. I'm taking action. They're sending me texts. So they got good automation. Cause I'm like, yeah, I need hey dude, you said you wanted this.
Yeah.
I don't just don't want like therapy. I want someone to be like, listen, be like, how does it make you feel? And then like, okay, here's some steps to do something about that. Like I would like a little bit of a man logic, not just, I need to process emotions. I need to talk about shit, but there's only so much talking I can do before I'm like, where the fuck is this going?
It's funny you say that. I've always had I guess trouble crying too. Like I've never had it come up to cry. I've always been able to push things down pretty well. And there's been even moments in my life where my partner has always been like, why are you not sad right now? This is like a sad thing. And I'm like, I don't know. It's part of life. Type of situation. And they're like pissed. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I got work in 3 hours. That's something I'm thinking about at the moment. And then I got to go do this other thing and come back, one of the few times I've actually like broke down and cried was when I went and saw my family member that was on my dad's side. I never knew my grandfather. And this was like the last person that knew my grandfather well. And I went and interviewed her and she was in the hospice, basically nursing home. And I came out of there after interviewing. I got to interview her for 2 days and came out of there and just like, I knew it was the last time I was ever going to see her. And it was the first time seeing her, learning like all this information about my family from like way, way back. And then at the end, just knowing it was the last time I was going to see her, I just like broke down in my car. I don't know where it came from, what it was. It was just something that was like, that was heavy. Like getting all that information and then just knowing like, that's the last time I'll ever see that person. And like knowing I was the last person that she was the last like connection to that world of my family. And I was able to get that information. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I probably need that BetterHelp too.
I think I get a referral code. But I mean, today's episode is sponsored by How to Cry.
I cry. I always wondered that though with getting those is I always feel like sometimes when people are searching for a therapist or someone to help them, they always look for someone that'll agree with them instead of being the person that's like just trying to help. Yeah. Not someone that's trying to agree. And then they're like, yeah, you're right. That's right. Or da-da-da-da. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to be told I'm right. I just need to be told I'm a little normal, I guess. Maybe that's normal. I don't know.
Well, there's different styles of therapy and, psychoanalytical approaches. And have you seen the documentary / film? I don't know. Yeah, it's film, but with Jonah Hill and his therapist.
No, I know what you're talking about though. It just clicked in my head. I've heard that's really, really good.
It's really good. Really good. I mean, his approach is, more of like the self-help where he's like, he got frustrated with the kind of the dogma and the typical practices of therapy where it's just kind of reflective questions. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that like, just when it comes to emotions, it for I don't know if it'd be all encompassing emotions, but specifically just like touchy feely emotions for sure. It's been a all the way on or all the way off faucet. And after now Abby and I officially being married, like one of the things I realized is, hey, there's an opportunity here to navigate some nuance and understand how to not just compartmentalize on or off, but feel, because I'm trying to really wrap my head around, and I'm not looking for completeness, I'm not trying to get the end of the rainbow on women's emotions, but just allowing emotion and understanding that the emotion's cool and being kind of grounded. But
well, I feel like you and I came from a world where there wasn't time really for emotions.
right.
There wasn't time. Like I know both of our dads were like, we got shit we got to do. Don't do, we don't have time to play video games. We got to go out and do the chores. We got to do this. We got yard work, blah, 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 blah. And then same thing, if we ever saw that type of thing come out where we should bring out emotions, I feel like I don't know about your dad. My dad really didn't show too many emotions about that, but we got right back, daily life right afterwards. There wasn't really a time of mourning. And so from there, I just always thought like, okay, that's how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just like keep that shit down, get back to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what kind of like weird self-defensive or deflective mechanisms are born in that kind of environment. Because I mean, yeah, for sure. My family was a handshakes over hugs kind of family, like on my father's side. And that's been one of the really interesting journeys watching Kel now that he's sober, especially being sober after prison, but like being out of prison, wanting to work through emotion. And for a bit, like I was having to kind of reflect back some stuff to him, especially inside relationships, where I was like, hey man, like you're not emotionally retarded to the level you were when you went in prison, but if you're not encountering scenarios that like force you to change your perspective that you grow through, like maturity isn't an age. It's a constant decision of learning and growing, because you'll meet 40-year-olds that definitely don't have the emotional capacity of some 25-year-olds.
That is true. And we've run into a lot of them.
So I think it's just one of those stages now where I'm like, okay, hey, like if we're married, like I want to be able to empathize with emotion. I want to be able to show emotion more. Like that's something that I think is really, really attractive to Abby, is when I show and explain, like she'll say stuff like, can you believe we're married? And my dumb ass would say, yeah. Like, she's like, can you believe it's finally here? Yeah, I planned it. Why wouldn't I believe it's here?
That's the date. We've been, were you not expecting that?
Versus, when we had like the sun coming up on the playa and, we'd taken some love chemicals and are just like profusely, letting all these emotions and thoughts come pouring out. She's like, where is this side of you? And I'm like, because nothing's changing here. It's the same me, right? It's not like these are new thoughts. They're just coming out. So there's a connection there, in a roundabout way, trying to just explain like there's something there. There's that I want to bridge and be able to access more frequently and flip back, because as a man, I also think on the other side of the coin is being grounded, compartmentalizing, moving forward and executing, because that's our role. I mean, that's my opinion of our role. And that's the role I'm choosing to define for myself, is like, I don't want to fucking live in emotion. It sounds fucking terrible to be like a victim of my emotions all the time, but I would like to be able to shake their hand and be like, yeah, what do you think about this?
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned that. It's something I'm trying to learn how to do too. Same thing. I can't believe this is coming up. Yeah. Anything else? I can't believe it. It's all coming up. I'm the same way. And there's times too where I start opening up more. She's like, she'll love it too. And I'm starting to pick that up more and more too. And I want to do that as well. And it's just interesting trying to flip that switch, try to shut the shut the person that you portray to the world, I guess, off, because you're trying to get things done, and you don't want people to take advantage of you. You don't want people to think you're easy, to when you now are in those moments with your partner, to where like that should be shut off, because this person, you want them to be let in. You want them to show that you're easy to talk to and easy to connect with. And that's something I'm working through too, of trying to do that. And she recognizes it for sure. See, I'm trying to do that. I mean, we're getting married, so I assume she does.
Abby and I did that the other night where we were having a tiff. It was the definition of a tiff, right? Not a big deal. One of the frames that we're working on right now is not just like saying what you mean, but working through clearly defining when it's a bluff and when it's not, right? Because then I don't know what to trust, right? If you're just saying something because that's how you feel in the moment, but that's not what you're really going to act on, then defining that so that you can just express how you feel, but I can still fucking drag your ass to breakfast, even though, I made us late or whatever. I don't know. And so the other night we were in a tiff because I wanted to do something she genuinely didn't care and was trying to express that to me. But I was emotional at this point because I felt like I was being told what to do. And so she had the awareness to like bring the RPMs down and was like, Colin, like I really don't care. You're getting frustrated because you think I don't hear you. You're not hearing me. I'm just saying, do whatever you're going to do. Just tell me what you're going to do. Don't ask for permission because I don't care. And so somehow that got through my dense brick of a head, but I'm still emotional. And so I'm like, well, fine. Thank you for really being the bigger one here because I needed that. She was like, all right, so you're good? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm fired up still. She's like, yeah, you're just emotional, but like, I love you. I don't care. And I'm like, fuck. Yeah.
Do we have the same type of conversations with our partners? I swear to God, we're not going through that too. They're both the same way. Like her and I both, because I don't know. I've never found anyone or talked to anyone like Chrissy that was about as hard-headed as I am. So
if you can if you can find someone that put up with your shit, that's all it is at the end of the day. It's like, I don't know, man. Are you excited to officially get married? I mean, I don't know what else. Like,
oh yeah, I'm excited to get married. I'm excited. It's funny. A lot of people, with everything going on lately this year, like her and I have it's been a rough year for both of us for a lot of many reasons. So it's so funny. People are like, "Were you excited for the wedding?" And it's like, it's almost like a reminder to both of us. I'm like, oh yeah, we've been planning that thing that we're doing,
Yeah.
Yeah. People are like, when's the honeymoon? And we're like, honeymoon? Like, there hasn't been a time to think about that,
So you guys haven't planned a honeymoon?
No, we've got a few ideas. We haven't even planned that. We've been planning this wedding because we've got people coming from all over the world to this thing too, as well. I think Greece, Bulgaria, London, Canada, all over the US coming to this thing. Trying to get that. Her family's coming in, friends coming in. So she's been working, trying to plan that. And it's just been a crazy, and it's just like life throwing stuff at each of us of dealing with stuff, family health issues on both sides. We both got in a car accidents. We both had like our own.
You got in car accidents?
Yeah, I got in a car accident earlier this year. She did too. And mine was like, this car would not go in front of us. We were in St. Pete. It just wouldn't go. And I'm like creeping forward, and the car behind me, she was dealing with all of her kids. Just like, she had a taller car. So she looked up and just saw the green light and just gunned it right into the back of my car. And she was super cool about it. Like, she was like, that's my fault. Her grandma was in the car too. Like, everything was just like,
no.
It was a whole car full of distractions that she had.
Yeah.
So, and she was cool. Her insurance took care of it. It was, thank God it was like a scenario. It worked out great. But it was at a time we're trying to work on the rental property, trying to get it up and running too early this year. So it was just like one thing after another earlier this year. It was fun times. But
I will say, the sooner you can plan the honeymoon, like even just narrowing it down to something like concrete and then figure out the whatever. Like that was the thing that no one really gave us guidance on. Was everyone was like, elope, definitely wish we would have done that. But the thing that I think we would have appreciated support on is like carving out just intentional time for a honeymoon, so you feel like you're turning the page. Like you guys have this ceremony though, so I think that'll be.
Yeah, it's just that my company I just started with, they've given me all this time off to do the backpacking trip, and then all this time off for my family. She just started with her new company. They gave her a bunch of time off for this as well.
They're going to saying that the ceremony is going to be the special thing. So
the ceremony will be, and we definitely know like we're going to plan a pretty solid honeymoon next year. It's just like we need to let our PTO kind of catch up.
I get it. I just think if anyone listening, if you're getting eloped, like that's the only thing I would have changed is intentional honeymoon time. Because either it's the ceremony or the honeymoon or something that feels a little bit more like entering a new era.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make that connection. But, we got a really good story out of it. And Burning Man really tried to shit all over that. So
I don't know. I thought that was a pretty awesome story in general. Now, being there, I'm sure was a whole different thing.
Everybody, loves the story, and I love it too. It is just one of those.
I saw the tears of joy in that 1 or 2 second part that they were able to catch.
Yeah, the longer, the further we get away from it, the more beautiful the patterns seem, and yeah, I don't know. We'll do it right next year. Because I'm dragging your ass next year. I mean, that's the thing.
As long as there's no hurricanes, hurricanes, I'll be there. If there's a hurricane, I'm just gonna take a bulldozer and bulldoze down. Just leave it and tell people to pick it up while I'm gone. Because, god dang, I think I'm gonna get one of those. I've looked at those aqua dams. I'm gonna look at one of those aqua dams and put it around the house. See whatever that is about. But what's crazy is they're not even hurricanes. They're like the outer perimeter of a tropical storm or a hurricane catches, and it just catches the high tide perfectly. It's not even like the hurricane itself.
Yeah, that must have been a fair amount of water to get up in your house, like a couple inches and stuff. That was a fair amount of water.
Fair amount of water. The rest of the neighborhood was screwed. I mean, it was all the way down. FEMA was here. It was a natural disaster. They announced it. So like it was pretty serious here for sure. And it's just funny. Everyone's getting their house done. And I come back and now I'm working on my house, getting everything out.
When do you see yourself wanting to potentially move, you think?
Oh, as soon as this house is done and up and ready to go, we're finding a bigger house for sure out of this neighborhood. This is going to be turned to a rental immediately. I'm pretty much as soon as this bathroom's done, I'm going to do some outside maintenance. And then I'm going to have the floors not taken up and redone. I found a company that knows how to refurbish original hardwood floors. Yeah. I'm going to have them do that. And while that's all happening, we're going to go find a bigger house for sure.
Yeah.
In the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then we'll end up with 3 properties under our name after that. So under our business, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the thing. I'm like, I was talking about that house in Tampa. I'm like, I kind of wish I didn't sell it. I mean, with Gasworks coming in now, if I would have known that if that permitting would have been approved, I probably would have held the house. But
Tampa's not a bad area either, especially over there in like the Channel Side area. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean,
nice. I like St. Pete though. St. Pete's got everything you want and need, and it's right here. Go to beach, go downtown.
I'm really curious to see what happens when that contract is up with the Rays. I don't see them renewing it.
There's 2 plans behind it. The biggest one was, of course, turning it into luxury condos and stuff like that, and building a big park. And the other one was tearing it completely down. The city buys it out, and they turn it into a massive park there,
which is what they should do.
That's what they should do.
do.
Yeah, why not? Like if the city's been giving tax money to this owner the whole time to take care of the stadium. I think they owe it to the people to tear it down because it's in the heart. It's in the heart right there next to downtown. Why not turn it into a nice, beautiful park with a lake in it? Oh, it'd be awesome.
Because of money. That's why. And fuck you and fuck me. That's why, actually, if I had to succinctly answer that one. Same thing here in Austin. Like they were trying to turn Zilker Park, which is like our mainstay park. It's kind of like the thing in New York, in Manhattan. What is that? The big park area?
Oh, Central Park.
Central Park, right?
Yeah.
So that's Zilker is kind of like Austin Central Park, where it's got the beautiful skyline of downtown and open fields, and it's just so beautiful. They were wanting to turn that into another outdoor music auditorium or whatever. And one of the hippies that I play Ultimate Frisbee with, she led the charge. She's a journalist and got they tried to do it overnight. They did do it overnight. They did a closed vote to move it into like the next whatever at like 1 a.m. And then they were like trying to expedite, like Live Nation and these other companies like Envision were coming in, and it was like $110 million investment package they were trying to pass. And within like 2-3 weeks, they were voting on this, and they got like 15,000 signatures, and I think it ballooned up to more than that. And tons of people showed up, so they had to move the hearing again, so it could be a bigger public hearing. And eventually, enough people, led by the hippies, were like, "Fuck you." So they settled for
professionally getting it done,
getting us paid parking at the park now. So you got to pay $7 to park at the park. I'm like, where's that money going?
Where's that $7 going to everything?
I bitched about it while I was parking, and some guy that like clearly is up on like local news and stuff. I was just bitching to myself. I'm like, where the fuck is this money going? And he just chimed in. He was like, oh, just so you know, we voted on that. Like we passed that as the citizens of Austin. We said, yeah, sure, let's do it. He goes, I read that fucker. It doesn't have to go anywhere. It's just slush fund. So it could literally go right into the pockets of the committee that voted for it, that nominated the bill. I'm like,
so it's a lobbyist fund, basically.
Sweet. That's what I love to hear.
Sweet.
Love it, baby. Taxes, pay the man.
It's a nice big old lobbyist fund. Man, Austin, Texas is going to be an interesting place over the next few years to see what happens.
What, St. Pete?
Austin, Texas, because many people are moving there. It is insane. Like
peak house prices are down, I think 10% this year.
It's because I saw another people applying for mortgages are down. No one wants to. There was that flush of everyone moving out of California and Oregon and Washington, and now that flush is pretty much done. Now they got to actually work to try to attract people to come there.
Technology.
Good, it's bad. Welcome back. Sorry about that, folks.
I mean,
world cut it off for whatever reason.
They didn't even notice. They don't even know. They don't know.
Right. That's the awesome part about editing. They didn't even notice, except the random stop and start again.
What about the jet?
So there is a random jet that went missing today around like 2:00 over South Carolina. The guy ejected from it was an F-10. What's the most popular fighter jet right now? An F-10 or F-35? I don't know, something like that.
Most popular or newest?
The newest, like most expensive.
F-35.
F-35 is the most technologically advanced, and I guess the guy ejected, but when he ejected, it was in like hidden mode. When he ejected, and it was in autopilot, and it just kept going after he ejected, and the government's like, we don't know where that went. And so they put out a hotline and everything to like the public of like, please help us find this fighter jet.
No way.
Yeah. Like they've literally just released everyone like, we have lost a fighter jet and we need help finding this. If you could let us know.
Holy cow. How does that happen?
It's just a fighter jet going across the sky. Like, imagine that it was lost to like South Carolina or something. They're like,
but I don't understand. He ejected and it kept flying.
I don't know why he would have ejected. I've heard numerous things of like it was hacked and something ejected him out of there. I saw that report, but I don't know why he would have ejected out of it. It was 2 flying. Now, if there was 2 flying, why didn't the other one follow it and be like, oh, maybe we should follow that jet that's on autopilot, shoot it down?
Oh, I don't know. That's so wild.
Yeah. Talk about conspiracy theory. Woo.
Dude, speaking of conspiracy theories, last night Abby and I were digging into some really juicy ones, and the one that I tell you what just like gets me every time is when people think like aliens are living among us, and I'm like, okay, sure, it's easy to make a case for it until you get to maybe like lizard people. Then I'm like, all right, I gotta draw a line somewhere, and then how about UFOs routinely visiting us? And I'm like, so in the 60s, we had the Blackbird. Is that what it was? The spy plane, the Blackbird?
Yeah.
Flying Mach 2, 50, 60,000 feet. Being able to take pictures of Soviet newspapers, and we could read the newspapers.
Stealthily. Didn't even know they were up there.
60s.
Yeah.
It's not like we stopped developing stuff without telling the general public.
Yep, stop right there. We don't need anything else.
It's not like the government's like, all right, no, we're good.
Nah.
We'll develop like cooler like planes, and that's it. Like, no, they're the ones that have little cubes that just go boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, yeah.
Up 800 feet, down 800 feet within a second, and oscillate around in different directions. And we're like, how's that happening? It's like, dude, Navy pilots are not going to be told what's going on in some dungeon in the middle of the desert. The guys that were unfortunate enough to be born with a super high IQ, but were in foster care and got raised by the government agencies to just do the bidding of rocket scientists or however they recruit. They're not going to be telling Navy pilots what the fuck they're demoing in the middle of the ocean. Like, the UFOs are us, but at the same breath, we are the aliens. You know what I mean? Like, I think...
Yeah. Well, Bob Lazar was the closest one that got to that, I would say. That, like, as far as, like, a citizen.
But can you trust it?
I mean, his story has never changed. You know, he's always told the same story over and over, very consistent. He's done he never got any money off of it, maybe until recently, when he made his book.
Yeah.
Which just tells basically the same thing he's been saying over and over anyways. I don't know, that's the closest one. The way he describes it though, it makes sense on how it works and how the engine works, and they couldn't figure out how to back engineer it. It all makes pretty good sense to me.
So if you think, here's another weird thing. If you think, let's say, since at least 1960, maybe a little bit earlier, 1950, right? If some weird alien type shit's been going on, like definitely since the 60s, like since America is like cemented as world superpower, right? Let's say craft lands in Brazil. Is America just going down there and being like, hey, that's ours now? They're like, no, it's ours. And we'll be like, that's cute, but we're taking this back wherever the fuck we want. Do you think that's the kind of situation going on? Because other countries aren't really like commenting.
They might. I mean, they might do that, and they just keep their. Because how often does Brazilian social media reach your news feed or reach your feed? You know, so if they start reporting stuff, how much of it's actually making its way up here? If something were to land down there and it gets recovered by America.
Yeah.
Also, we're such a superpower. We just go to the Brazilian government and be like, we're just going to take that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, or if something landed in some Middle Eastern country, right? Because we have all these forward operating bases, and you know, who knows with the Space Force and the the kind of technology that we have just orbiting Earth. We know when anything moves, especially related to nuclear anything, anywhere in the world, we know where it's going on. That was also one of the weird things. The dude that was opposition leader for Russia and the Communist Party, the guy that got poisoned or whatever, Putin's dudes poisoned him. So when he blew open that crazy expensive mansion that Putin has, it was like hundreds of millions of dollars. They had a fucking cave he could park his sub in.
As a world leader, that's kind of badass.
That's pretty super villain.
That's pretty. I mean, are you really a super villain if you don't have a parking spot?
Right.
How funny would that be too? Is if like just as the icing on a cake, when he got out of his sub, he had like a little meter. He put a coin in when he got out.
Imagine.
Keep filling that up for me, Bobby.
I mean, sometimes I genuinely wonder. I guess like if you have a super high drive, it makes sense to keep playing the game. But like after you get hundreds of millions of dollars, like what are you doing?
Well, who knows? Did you see they met with North Korea recently? That was interesting.
Russia?
Yeah, Putin and Kim Jong-un met together.
Like, what's going on?
There's all these African young men that are ending up at our border right now. And Africa and China and Russia both made a pact with Africa not long ago. And now all of a sudden there's all these African men ending up at our borders, at the southern border, sneaking in. What's going on there?
Geopolitics is such a weird one.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after the nuclear age. Have you seen Oppenheimer?
Awesome movie. Got to
Great
watch
movie.
that. Great movie. Great movie. Everything they did with it. I'm glad I got to watch IMAX too.
Woo. I didn't get to see it IMAX.
It was good. It was good. Yeah. I'm glad I did.
I thought about taking.
You didn't need IMAX for most of it until the end, but
right.
It was good.
The end will blow your socks off, right?
Yeah.
So after the nuclear era, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like honestly, at this point, it's a race towards a quantum computer because then all encryption keys are just irrelevant in the world, as well as being able to process information in a manner that mankind's never ever seen. What else? Like,
well, I think that's the opposite of like, we're not using nukes because I think all countries kind of realize that kind of hurts things more than it gets what you want out of it, right? But going after your enemy's infrastructure is probably the next thing. Like, have you seen
warfare?
Have you seen the past week and a half about how Vegas has been under a
Vegas,
cyber attack? Right?
Yeah,
it's been crazy, shutting down everything. MGM got attacked across the entire country. Every one of their properties got hit. Now imagine that they're getting access to all that information. They're shutting down all the slot machines, which is crazy that it's connected to the internet. But they're getting access to all those and shutting down everything. It's like, what if they got? Who knows if they actually got into something like a city's electrical system? All of a sudden, if Teslas are getting hooked up into the electrical system, I don't know how that works. But what if they hack the electrical system and then they're able to get into your Teslas? Boom! All of a sudden, all your shit's done.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I mean, that's the fear, And then we got a lot of smart people working on preventative solutions. But
I read a story about years ago. I guess I don't know one of the Vegas owners of one of the big resorts there said something. It was shortly after 9/11. Said something about either Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan, said something really bad about them. It was it was very racist about them that they caused this. And so a spy system in one of those countries hacked his hotel and shut it all down just to be like, we're watching you. Like, don't say shit about us like that.
Rightfully so.
Just for, but think about that. Just for being like, hey,
a racist piece of shit.
For being a piece of shit, rightfully deserved, but also being like, we're watching. There's all these hacker groups all watching. And I guess they're in it for the money, of course. Hacking, pay us ransom so you can get your shit back. But that's what Caesar's Palace did. They paid a ransom so they didn't have all these problems.
What do you think? What they have to pay? Because they're publicly.
It was what I heard. It was they were asking for $30 million, and I believe they negotiated it down to $15 million. But that's just the first wave, right? From what I've read about it, is these hackers will do multiple ways of doing it. They'll go, "Hey, we'll hack you if you don't give us back, if you don't pay us." So then, okay, you paid us. Now we're not going to hack your system, but we have access to all this information. Now, if you want this information back, so you don't have to tell the people we have it, you have to pay us this much. Okay, now we're going to relieve it back to you. Now you have to pay us not to do it again because we already have it. You know, they said they got access to it because they just called into the customer service line, asked for an employee, asked for some basic information, and they were able to hack the system. That's the way they said they got in.
Yeah, it's like social engineering, right?
Wild how they're able to go after all that. And right before F1 too. This is interesting. Right before the F1 races are going to happen there soon.
When is that?
Fairly soon. I'm not quite, they're pretty done almost with the Vegas F1 races. I'm so glad we have this now where we can use our phones instead of recording with our phones. Remember those days? Those were fun. November 19th, so it's coming up.
Yeah, that's right there.
It's going to be at 1 a.m.? Holy shit. Wow. That's going to be a night race.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty wild.
Are you thinking about when we're recording with our phones trying to set it?
Yeah.
Phones running out of memory space or turning off accidentally or someone calling during the middle of it.
We've come so far. Now we're going to be married. We potentially have a studio on the horizon.
Studio would be awesome. You come back to St. Pete, we can get a nice studio. You just you go and flip the switch, everything turns on. There's a cooler full of beer waiting. Go right in.
Oh yeah. Make like, oh God bless America. That's what I want. That's what I want right there.
That's what I want. How much for my problems to go away?
Well, all right. If you want your problems to go away, be sure to subscribe this episode and
share it.
Hey,
subscribe, like it, do whatever. Help us grow. We want to get bigger people on here for you guys. We want to continue the guests. We're going to have some cool guests coming on here pretty soon too. We're excited.
If there's any guests you guys would like to see, well, let us know. Maybe we'll give a fuck. All right, till next week, guys.